Right, well, my name is Jimmy Brown. I'm 19 years old. I suffer from various degenerative conditions and alcoholism. I'm also obese by the standard of the BMI.
Did that guy just say he's the same age as me? If you're anything like me, then you should be confused, intrigued, concerned by the title of this video. And that's exactly how I felt yesterday when I was scrolling through YouTube and found a video entitled, "I'm quitting Prozac to continue drinking."
I'm quitting Prozac to continue drinking, 'cause that's the only thing that keeps me from sinking.
Stop right there. That guy is Jim E. Brown, which he announces at the beginning of most of his songs.
My name is Jimmy Brown. The name of this song is I Know I'm Going to Die of a Stroke.
Now, obviously, this was a striking first impression, especially when his songs are kind of good. I had to know more, and with just a quick visit to his YouTube profile, we learned from his description that poet and artist/activist Jim E. Brown was born in Manchester on September 10th, 2001, just one day before 9/11. Now, that was 24 years ago at the time of recording, despite his constant claims that he is still 19. It also says that he's an alcoholic and has severe degenerative conditions. This is about his bio on every single social media platform or profile that he can be found on, but my favorite is Facebook. This seems a bit far-fetched, and Jim E. Brown has been open in speaking about his history with lying, stating that he didn't dare ever try to lie until he was 18, firmly believing that his nose would grow like Pinocchio if he tried, but then it didn't. So he's been lying ever since his 1 year of being 19. Out of character, this guy is totally lying, right? It's a character. He's not 19 if he's from Manchester and living in Birmingham, like he says. I firmly believe the alcoholic part. But he has a P.O. box in Philadelphia. He might not even be British. I want to walk you down the path of Jim E. Brown, just as I have, through the child abandonment and failed relationships, to hopefully enlighten you to the inner psyche of this true genius that I've discovered. It's really hard to do proper research on Jimmy Brown because he's so ingrained into the character. But starting off with these in-character interviews, we can maybe get a sense of where he's coming from. Like, he says that his favorite bands are Coldplay, Kraftwerk, and Fish. Wild combo. Coldplay because they're nice, Kraftwerk because that he can just steal their synth lines from them, which, get in line, buddy, everybody's doing that. And Fish because they're boring, so he doesn't have to pay attention when he listens to them, and he lost his virginity to them. To me, stealing from Kraftwerk is the big point, which means this guy knows what he's doing. I didn't even mean to wear the shirt. This just happened. If you don't know who Kraftwerk were, super influential synth band in 1974. Like, any pop music you've listened to past 1974 was based off of these guys. But Brown has said that he doesn't actually make his own music. He hires freelancers on Fiverr and then sings over them, which is also clearly just another layer to everything, because he perfectly replicates all of the songs these supposed freelancers make whenever he does live radio performances or performing live shows, because he tours all the time. With like a full band too, but we'll get to that. Weirdly was that Kraftwerk detail, which led me down finding information about him pre-COVID, out of character, real version of himself, which I'm not going to talk about because it feels weird and just less interesting. But he does come from a music here space, and he's interviewed some pretty big artists. We can assume that Jimmy Brown was a COVID project in 2020, 2021, because that's when someone would have been 19 if they were born the day before 9/11. His first album, Jim E. Brown Sings His Love Songs, came out in early 2021. It opens, like in his beginning monologue, with a phone number you can call if you find his words attractive. I did call it, and unfortunately does not work. The music is secondary to the joke here. Rarely is there an escape from the wallowing pity party of Jimmy Brown, but it's generally solid. It can lean a bit heavily onto the cheap Casio sounds that plagues so much novelty music. Rarely is the singing ever on key or in time, but it goes kind of hard. And I've found myself the past couple of days, the past day, it's only been a day, with the songs in my head on loop. Help me. My favorite is How Do I Stop Crying When I Masturbate? His lyrics always reference his alcoholism and severe degenerative conditions, drawing comparison to fellow Mancunian who can't sing and hates himself, Morrissey. Jim's cover of Linger by the Cranberries sounds exactly like a Smiths cover of the song would sound like, except it's way more enjoyable because it's put into a context where it's okay to laugh with the artists instead of being forced to watch the agony occur outside of the space, and just gaze at the voyeuristic horror. While he's a career rock star, a lot of Jim's most interesting lore comes from his day-to-day life. Opening up his Instagram, which has 4 times as many followers as his music-exclusive YouTube, you immediately see that the most recent things he's been up to is modeling for Rick Owens and opening up for Lebanon Hanover on tour. He has serious industry connections and tours internationally all the time. This guy seems like he should be such a cult personality that's referenced on other spaces of the internet, like the Poop Song guy. But he somehow stayed elusive despite having 80,000 followers. No one seems to really understand or put the pieces together on his deeper lore, including myself. I thought that I would find some hardcore brownheads online, but when I posted on Reddit about this video asking if anyone had any favorite pieces of niche lore or stories or things that Jim has gone through, the only things people said were to make sure to mention that he's an alcoholic and has severe degenerative conditions. Also that it was weird to me making a video about a teenager. This deeper lore, which does exist, by the way, in a very curated manner, Jim is not a one-sided man, can be found in his bibliography, which I have not read, because it's $80 on Bandcamp, which for 6 books, all autographed and inscribed by the man himself, seems like a good deal. Much better a deal than the $40 wet napkin he sells on his merch store, I'd argue. I want to talk more about the merch later, but all of the prices are in pounds, which I find so funny when he is from Philadelphia. An accusation I don't mind making, because Jim has stated, like most things, that he's entirely apathetic to the claim. His 3 main books are the Brown on Brown volumes. The first one, which details the more mundane details of his day-to-day life, like his favorite pub, and his father's pus-filled sores, something that he just mentioned in his Rick Owens campaign. All of these little details, these silly things, he's not just saying them. These are established things that are reoccurring and have backing. In the second one, Jim, homeless and alone, desperate with grief after his breakup with Nancy, an heiress to a turkey dinosaur and chicken nugget fortune, Jim begins a sexual relationship with the pub landlord of Yield Cock, which is his favorite pub, and his life begins to spin farther and farther out of control. Okay. And the third is about a 5-year-old Brown going through with a leg lengthening surgery in Germany, so that he can meet the height requirement for the avalanche bobsleigh in Blackpool Pleasure Beach. We hear a lot about Jim through himself in these books, I'd imagine. It's mostly self-loathing, but I think his other books are a bit more revealing, because in those we see how he reacts in relations with other people. In Shattered, Losing My Son Tanner and Learning to Love Again, we learn about how he lost custody of his son after abandoning him in an orphanage in Philadelphia for being narcissistic and toxic, having a narcissistic personality at 4 years old. However, he falls in love with and begins an on-again, off-again relationship with Judge Miranda Roberts, who made the ruling to take away custody. A Holiday with Mrs. Higgins finds him on a holiday with Mrs. Higgins, who's an elderly woman who he develops feelings for and falls in love with, but there's tension in the relationship because her husband won't they have a rule where she can't have sex with another man until the 6th date. It's the 7,000th 787th most popular book in the polyamory romance section on Amazon. And lastly, there's Brittany's Burden, a story about Jim falling in love with a sober woman, trying to change for her, but then he ends up lying about his own sobriety. Brittany is the wife of Jim's second son, also called Tanner. I think this one highlights the sincerity behind Jim. I say, having not read it. Jim could be a reflection of someone's own alcoholism, self-doubts exaggerated into self-reflection, or to explore the absurdity behind these doubts, or like I mentioned earlier, turning flaws into assets, and making a space and environment where people can laugh with instead of at. Or it could all completely be a character. Not only is it so detached from anyone that's behind it, there's just so much there that he's a whole guy. I mentioned how wild his Instagram is. When I first went on there, there was him eating a real Labubu, then a meat Labubu, then him as a Labubu, and real food reviews of him at restaurants all over while touring, drunk driving, Rick Owens, Lebanon, Hanover, and months worth of content. And it was all from just the past couple of days. He's been doing this for years, so it's so substantial. My favorite thing that I found on his Instagram, though, is his Letterboxd profile, where he consistently ranks movies, a lot of classics, or just popular movies. And the majority of the reviews, they're fairly lengthy, are just complaining about sex scenes because he abhors sex, or the movies being in black and white, or the subtitles because he hates reading. I really admire a guy who hates reading, writing 6 books, like conquering that. I don't know if you proof write these books or not. But my favorite review is for American Psycho, where he talks about how Bret Easton Ellis has heard his music and didn't like it and said that it was too jokey, but his boyfriend Todd liked it. And he wrote a song about this fact. A lot of interesting people follow him and are invested in him, like Chris Frantz from Talking Heads, the punk band Teen Mortgage, and the singer of Viagra Boys. Viagra Boys Jim E. Brown collab win. Their styles would go perfectly together. That would be amazing. I said I would go back to merch, so look at this shirt. It's great. Next, down my disjointed journey down this rabbit hole, because this clearly isn't in chronological order, and I'm clearly not in the mind space to make a thoughtful critique about this. I've heard word that he had a Substack. It's called Brown's Bits, and the first article to catch my eye was called Why I Tried and Failed to Perform Surgery on My Family's Dog. There's also how jogging while smoking crack changed the way I jog. Apparently when these were first coming out, they were locked behind a $50 paywall, but they're all open access now, and very entertaining. He's appeared several times on the Doublehead Radio Hour, which is a music discovery show out of Austin, Texas, community radio, where he's asked for advice about a lot of things, like his spineless support rat, who he later updated on that he threw into a river. I was initially going to do a video about interesting kids in music and then throw him in, because it would be funny, but I couldn't focus on any of the other interesting stories I know, because this guy was taking all my attention. I know a social worker / psychologist who focuses on addiction recovery, who I kind of want to show this guy to, who I think will appreciate it. Let me know if you want commentary reaction from that. I asked Jim E. Brown himself if there was anything I needed to know or that I should put in this video. I didn't get a comment back, but very understandable. He's a busy guy. But like and subscribe, because I think I'm going to make a song about the poop guy next. I was on his podcast once.